I've actually heard a lot of interviews with you, and a lot of these guys who do like sports interviews, not you, but a lot of people who do sports shows, they have platitudes, they have a lot of bromides, like never quit, chase down your dreams. And so I want to get past all that stuff because I know you don't just tell your athletes, all right, go out there and be relentless, right? You have to teach them how to do that. So I want to start there.
That's perfect.
I also assume you're not the first trainer that athletes call. You're maybe the last trainer, not like you're the least qualified, but you're definitely not. No one flies somebody across the country to get taped, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just like, I'm like, when nothing else is going right, things are at the end of it. People are like, all right, something isn't going right here. My career is it's not where it should be. Let's call Grover.
And I think this is an interesting niche, if you can even call it that, because, and you mentioned this in the book, the new book, Winning, and in the old book, Relentless, the original book, it's crucial for a champion or for any high performer to know who to trust and when to trust them, because highly successful people rarely get to hear the truth. So it almost seems like they bring you in because you're the one who goes, yeah, all that stuff about your coaches telling you this or that, or that they just don't want you to get mad and then it affects their career negatively. But since you're paying me, I'm going to tell you that all these things you're doing are wrong, or your attitude sucks, or you're giving up too early, or that kind of thing. And that's got to be kind of a special position to be in, because they're calling you in like the A team, but also they can fire you. It's their problem, right? That's their problem at that point.
It's all, it's interesting. I've never worked directly for an organization. I've always worked for the individual. And I always tell them, listen, you can fire me at any time. What am I going to do? All right, you sign a 2-year deal. What am I going to do? Sue you? No. If we feel like this isn't a good match, we're going to end up leaving. But you bring me in to clean things up. You bring me in to organize things. You bring me inside to take out the unessentials. Everybody else comes in, they want to add. I'm the individual that comes in and say, you don't need this, you don't need this, you don't need this. What's the role of this person here? What does this person do? Why are you doing this? What the habits are? And you have to justify to me how it's going to benefit your career. And then if we agree that it is, then we put it in the right places for it to maximize and excel. In any relationship, what's the first thing a person asks for? They said, be honest with me.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're honest with a person...
How dare you? Nobody talks to me like that. Yeah.
Right. So I said, well, if you want me to be honest, you want the truth should lead to more action and better results. Most of the time, the truth leads to more emotion and less results. So I always tell these people, listen, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to increase your performance so you can perform at the highest level. I don't judge. I'm not here to judge. Let's figure out what we need to do and what we don't need to do in order to get to those things. And individuals come up to me and they say, I'll do anything, until I tell them what anything really means.
Yeah. I can imagine that to be the case. I don't know. It seems hard for me to imagine, just as somebody who has never been in a professional athletic situation. Those guys are always there, the guys and gals for that matter. They're always there because of their immense work ethic, talent. Is it that some people coast on their talent and they're just not used to working through that limitation? Is that part of it?
Yes, it has. You know what? It's funny. You can get by at the high school level. You can even maybe get by at the collegiate level. But once you hit that professional level, everyone is extremely talented. So the gifts that you had that separated you early, they may not separate you as much anymore. And then every professional individual I've known, you're going to hit some adversity. And a lot of athletes, they are so good at such a young age that everybody's handled all their adversity for them. So now they're at a level where they actually have to do it for themselves, and they've never had to deal with it. They've never had to deal with it. So now they have to deal with it. They're like, they don't know what to do, whether it could be an injury, whether it could be a family situation, a relationship situation. They've always had somebody else cleaning their stuff up for them. or when they have an injury, they've never had to work that hard, or they had something taken away from them that they were so gifted at for such a long time. So the earlier you can develop that work ethic along with that talent, the more successful you will be.
It reminds me of like the smart kid. For those of us who can't imagine being that talented athletically, which is definitely me, I'm in that camp. But this is like those smart kids that can just walk into a test in high school and they're like, it's geometry, calculus, whatever. And they do it. And you just, guys like me who study are just like, I hate this guy. He walks in, forgot we had a test. I've been studying for 3 weeks. And he's like, oh, the super hard problem at the end, does it in his head, doesn't need his calculator, forgot his calculator, and gets an A- or an A, and I'm like, I'm getting a C+, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to pass this class, right? And then those guys get to, let's say, Wall Street. They go to law school, they crush it, they're the top 10%. Then they get to Wall Street, and it's like, oh, this is everybody who's smart and worked really hard, and your dad's not the guy who owns the law firm anymore, and he can't smooth the fact that you failed the first couple of assignments, or like you can't show up late anymore because you like to go to bed at 3 a.m. We need you at 8 and you're not functioning at 8 and you've never had to like pay the piper of that lack of sleep.
Yeah, there's no longer a huge endowment that's been going to the school through your family where you got to actually go out and earn the stuff. Well, that has a lot to do with the ability to, and I talk about this in the book Winning, where everyone knows when you go to school and you go through an education process, everyone tells you what to think. Here's the book, here's how the lessons, here's history, here's the philosophy, here's how you solve a calculus problem, here's geometry, here it is. Everything is what to think. When you get out of school and you get in that workforce and you get in that competitive environment, you have to learn how to think. And a lot of people don't have that ability. They only know what to think, what to think, what to think. But having the ability to know what to think and how to think it's individual. It's individual to you. It's your ability to understand problems. It's your ability to figure things out. It's your ability to see things in a way that nobody else will see it. And the greatest athletes, the greatest business persons have the ability to know what to think and how to think. I mean, you look at, Jeff Bezos. If he didn't have how to think about what he did it didn't exist. It didn't exist. You don't find it in a book. Elon Musk, these individuals, all these people that are Sarah Blakely, all these individuals, they have the ability not only to what to think, but how to think. And your best athletes also have that ability.
What do you think about these guys who write books like, all right, 10 steps to this or 15 rules for ABC, right? They're just telling you what to think a lot of the time.
Right. And here's the thing. Don't you wish it was that easy?
Yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of...
five steps or 10 steps. Listen, neither one of us are professional athletes, but we work out. All right. It doesn't matter how much you work out. You could literally train for 3 months straight at a high intensity level. If I told you go climb 10 flights of stairs, you're going to be out of breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So people always make it seem like when they give you a step, like it's an easy thing. No, it's a way to simplify things. It's a way to simplify winning, where to make it look like it's so easy. You only need 5 steps, or you only need these 10 things to be successful. Listen, the steps are infinite. And not only are they infinite, they're constantly changing. You don't know if the step is underneath you. You don't know if it's to the left. You don't even know if it's right. You don't even know if it's there sometimes. You just have to believe that there is another step. And that's how you get to winning. There's nothing about winning that's that simple. It's like I get this question all the time. What's the one thing? There is no one thing. There is, but everybody, they want to cut that. They want to cut out the infinite things and just get to the one thing. The only one thing is winning. But in order to get to winning, there's infinite things that you have to do to get to that area.
I can then sort of extrapolate what you might think about motivational folks on social media or even podcasts where they're like, all right, you've got to just do this. And here's a photo of me meditating in the snow, right? Or like doing a handstand with one arm, which is impressive. I can't do that. Right. But I wonder, what real athletes think about that, because that's the stuff they use to sell like sports watches or socks. But I don't think real athletes, I don't think Kobe Bryant saw an Instagram photo of somebody doing a headstand on one arm and was like, man, that's awesome. I don't think that ever happened.
No, you know what? It's funny. Motivation to me is entry level. It's entry level. All right. It's like if you need motivation, you're just beginning the race. That means somebody else is making you do something that you don't want to do. All right, where you constantly need motivation. You constantly need motivation. These athletes and these business people, they're not looking for motivation. They're looking for elevation. That's what they're looking for. They're looking to elevate their game. They're looking to elevate their business. They're looking to elevate their lives. All right, I've never one time had to raise my voice to my athletes because their motivation was at such a high level. It was internal. It wasn't external. It's kind of like that sugar high. You go to these different conferences and everybody gets you all fired up and everybody's clapping hands and they're giving you high fives and everybody's jumping up and they all tell you, let's go. And then once the event's over with, you're like, where are we going?
Right.
There's no direction. There is no direction. And it's just like, if you eat a lot of candy, you're buzzing around all over the place. It's the same thing with that motivation. You go on this extreme high, and then there's this extreme letdown once you figure out what the work that it's going to take and the time and the effort that you're going to have to put in, not somebody else that's going to be constantly pushing you and telling you and so forth. You have to figure this out, a lot of it on your own.
And I think that's why the stuff that you mentioned is so popular, right? The getting psyched up and getting motivated. One, it's fun. And two, like if you tell me I just have to go to this get psyched seminar and they'll lay out the roadmap and they'll hold my hand all the way through it, that's really tempting for somebody who doesn't know anything about business. And that's what you see a lot with like multi-level marketing companies. They're like, oh yeah, just buy this and then follow your upline and they'll tell you what to do. And it's all mentorship. And you're like, great, a mentor. They're going to pull me up with them. Oh, it's only $10,000 or whatever it is. But none of that is real, because the people that are really successful are the ones that are just doing all of this sort of like black box stuff where, like you said, the steps not only are vague or possibly something you don't even know about, they're not necessarily even there.
Yeah. It was funny. I always ask all my athletes, my businesses that I speak to, the CEO, the clients, I always ask them, describe winning in one word. And you'll when you go to these motivational things, you'll have people come in and say, it's fun, it's happiness, it's exciting, it's exhilarating, and all this other stuff. When you talk to the individuals that win over and over again, this was some of the answers that they gave me. And we put this in the book. Uncivilized. It's hard. It's nasty. It's dirty. It's unpolished. It's rough. It's unapologetic. It's unforgiving. And then Kobe Bryant, his answer was, winning is everything, but you have to do everything for winning to be everything. And that's how these individuals describe winning, because they're not thinking about the celebration at the end, which is small and short. They're thinking about the race that they had to go through in order to get to winning. And in that race, that's where all the things are. That's where you spend more time in the uncivilized, in the nasty, in the unpolished than you do actually in the winning.
It's kind of like a graduation from high school. Like that's 2 days of fun or a day of fun or whatever. but the rest of it is high school. Most of us remember the 4 years more than we remember the graduation ceremony. Unless it's people's parents that remember those ceremonies that I didn't even go to. That
makes two of us.
Yeah, I never went to my high school graduation, college graduation, law school graduation. Once the hard part was over, I was kind of like, on to the next thing. I don't need to sit here and like pat myself on the back. My parents are proud of me. They already told me that. Well, I don't give a crap about the strangers who are here, you know?
Yeah, and most people that are clapping for you, they don't even know why they're clapping. And most of the ones that are clapping are actually not clapping for you because they're happy. They're not. Yeah. They're waiting. Yeah, they're waiting for you to fall because there's more to talk about, and there's more excitement in a person's life because they can deal with failure more than they can deal with success.
That's an interesting point. Do you think that people are waiting for you to fall because it makes themselves feel better, or just because does it humanize it in some way? Why do you think that is? Because I know that like there's petty people that want other people to fail because they've never tried. There's that. But is there something more to it?
Yeah, well, I say most people are afraid of success because once you become successful, now everybody sees that version of you. And in order to get success again, you got to become a better version. You got to become a stronger version. You got to become a smarter version. You got to become more of a winning version. So people like to stay in the middle. And that's where a majority of the people are, because that's where the comfort is. You're not super successful. You're not at the bottom. You're kind of in the middle, and you have a lot of conversations. You have a lot of stuff to get along with individuals with. And then once that individual starts to separate from that group, instead of that group uplifting that individual, most of them are trying to pull them back because they couldn't get to that next level of success, and they don't want to be left. They don't want to be left behind. One of the chapters in the book is, winning makes you different, and different scares people. So success makes you different, and people are scared by different. What they don't understand, they're automatically turned off by. The example is perfect of what you just said. You can sit in a conversation with 30 individuals and you tell them you never went to your high school graduation, you never went to your college graduation, you never went to your law school graduation. People are like, what do you mean? How could you not do that? Because majority of the people do those things. And you're like, this is done. This is complete. I don't need validation from anybody else. What's next for me? Those were your wins. Your wins were, I graduated high school, I graduated college, I graduated law school. Those wins are done. What's my next win?
To me, it always seemed like, look, when you're young, all you know is school, but it's really clear from the jump that that's just preparing you for life. So there was a part of me that's like, wait, I haven't achieved anything. All I've done is gotten out of like the part where now people aren't afraid I'm going to like accidentally kill myself by falling, or like now I have the basic skills enough where I can walk into an office and at least be somewhat trainable. You're kind of like a blank slate. Before that, you're just like pieces of wood on the floor. So it didn't seem, not that it was entirely unworth celebrating, but you're right. It was like no validation from the outside was required. And certainly not the kind of validation that you get from, well, it was also expensive to go to those things. I don't know if you remember. It's like, $1,000 to rent those things or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also think about it. What's the question after the celebration that somebody always asks you?
What are you going to do now? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do now? So you talk about going for those individuals that are on an extreme high from that motivation of I just finished. When they get asked that question, you talk about a crash coming down because most individuals don't know. They don't know where the next win is.
That's a good point. I don't remember thinking this, but I'm pretty sure that part of me not going was, well, one, I want to be on a plane going somewhere else because I only have a month off or whatever before my job starts. But the other thing was, I don't want somebody to ask like, oh, where are you working now? I mean, that we spent 3 years planning how to get jobs in law school. I don't want to talk about that anymore. I don't want to be we measuring with all the other people who are working at these different firms. Like that's our whole career is going to be like that probably. So you wrote in the book, you don't have to love the work, you just have to want the end result. And I think that's a real difference from what we see in our sort of social media landscape, where even companies that are advertising things, it's like, oh, you got to want the journey. And it's like, well, maybe a guy like me has to want the journey if I'm trying to like lose those last 10 pounds or like hire a trainer and show up every morning. But a real world-class athlete doesn't really need that, right? That's not on the docket.
No, you know what? There's a lot of these cliches out there that instead of helping you, they actually hurt you. You know, they said you gotta love the process. All right. The process, you have to do the process. The process is not an option. In anything you're trying to become successful at, you have to do the process. The end result is not guaranteed. You know, you can go through a year of process and get closer and closer and still not get to the end result, and the process starts all over. All right, so you have to do the process. You have to do it's a non-negotiable. The end result is not always going to be there. I don't know a single individual that loves 100% of what they do. 100%. They're just that's not there. But if you crave that end result, you think my athletes enjoyed practicing, you think they enjoyed the 90 minutes or 2 hours workouts that they had to do with me every single day, sometimes twice a day. They didn't enjoy those things, but they craved the end result so much that the work was irrelevant. They knew they had to do the work in order to get that end result. And, you know, this other one is about, you know, it's the journey, not the destination. Well, here's my problem with that. Why are you taking the journey if there's no destination? So what are you doing? Just aimlessly walking around or flying around or so forth? If you're taking a journey, most people that take a journey, they take a journey with a destination. Winning requires that destination. You just can't be aimlessly walking around, but that's just another way of saying, take your time. You have plenty, you got time to do this, you got that. Well, I always say this, while you're going on 3, 1, 2, 3, somebody's already left on 1. They've already left on 1, and they got a head start in their journey, your journey, but they also have a destination of where they're going to.
Tell me a little bit about meeting Michael Jordan, because I think this story illustrates that, leaving on 1. You mentioned it in the newest book as well. It's like this, he was ready to go on 1. Literally.
He was ready. Listen, we wouldn't even get to 1 and he was ready to go. I mean, when I met Michael, the whole process was how I got him. There was no emails back then. There was no social media. This was back in the late 80s. So I saw a small article in the newspaper saying how Michael was tired of taking the physical abuse from the Detroit Pistons. So what I did was I literally sent a written letter stamped to every player in the Bulls organization except Michael Jordan. Because my philosophy was back then, I was like, well, if I could show the results with these other players, then maybe I could get Michael's interest. Or Michael was so good, he probably already had somebody he was working out with. Those letters got to every single player. Michael reached into somebody else's locker, saw the letter, read it, and told the team athletic trainer and doctor and said, find out what this guy is about, who this is. So the best of the best, who is already at the top of his game, are always more coachable. They're always looking to get better. So I went through a 3-month process, making sure the athletic trainers and the medical staff knew what I was talking about. Actually, when I went to school, I actually learned something. And then 3 months later, they told me, just here's the address. They didn't tell me who this was for, so I had no idea who I was meeting. They gave me an address and they said, hey, just be at this house at 1:30 and the client will meet you there. And this was before before the gated houses and the security and all that other stuff. So you could literally just walk up to the house and ring the bell. So I walked up to the house not knowing who it was. I rang the doorbell, and Michael Jordan opens up the door. He opens up the door, and we sat and talked for about 30 to 45 minutes. I explained my philosophy. I told him what I could do, the program I would set up for him. And he told me, this doesn't sound right. And I said, this doesn't get any righter. I said, give me 30 days. 30 days turned into 15 years.
There was a anecdote, I think, in the book where you said, all right, when do you want to start? Thinking like, I got to order all this crap from, I don't know, Dunham's or whatever sporting goods stores were in existence in that era. Yeah. And he's like, tomorrow at 8 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whatever time in the morning. And you're just like, sandbags.
Yeah, that's exactly. So I literally had that. I had that evening to figure out I looked at the space, knew what I had to do. I had some contacts with some, with some equipment companies. And I literally picked up that equipment. Me and a couple of friends moved it into the house and put it together that evening for this workout the next morning. And that's exactly what you said. I couldn't have waited on 3. I could have told Michael, well, I can't do this. I can't, this is going to take 2 weeks. This is going to be you go figure it out. And that's what he said. Listen, I knew he was a type of individual that moved on one, and I had to be the same way.
And you didn't, the thing is, people could go, oh, well, you should have prepared for that knowing who he was, but you didn't even know he was going to answer the door. Like, to reiterate, you thought this is going to be somebody who's maybe even warming the bench. They're just testing you out, giving you a test run. Who knows?
Yeah. And, and I didn't expect it to be an individual that was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, now that I have your philosophies, I'm going to talk to a few other people. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to do that. These people, when they believe in something and they understand that you have to take a gamble on yourself, and meaning taking a gamble on yourself is sometimes taking a gamble with somebody else, they're ready to go now. They are ready to go now. And these individuals, so high strung, they're so internally motivated where they don't need the rah-rah-rah. They want to see results. They want to see results over and over and over again. And they want to see results that benefit their ability to perform at the highest level. Whether it's an athlete, whether it's a CEO, it doesn't matter who it is.
You've written about focusing only on internal pressure because you can control that. And I wonder, does this mean that we should put more pressure on ourselves than others can throw on us so that it's never unregulated or surprising? I mean, I guess it'll always be surprising, but I guess if we're putting the pressure on ourselves, then what we get externally is never going to be too much for us to handle. Does that make sense?
100%. I agree with you all the way on that. To me, pressure is a privilege. All right. That if you're put in a pressure situation, that means somebody believes in you. That means somebody believes in you. Well, if they believe in you, why don't you believe in yourself? All right. Pressure is a privilege. Pressure defines who you are and who you're not, but it also defines who you can become. Because pressure exposes a person's strength, it exposes a person's weakness, but it also exposes the individual on how they handle certain situations. I mean, I give it this great story of Michael in his last Utah, last championship, game 6. There's 42 seconds left on the clock, 42 seconds. They're down by 3 points. Not a single other Bulls player touched the ball in those 42 seconds. Not one. Not one. Michael got the ball. He scored. Utah brought the ball down. All right. He stole the ball from Karl Malone, took the ball down the court again, and scored again. That's what meaning pressure is a privilege. For most individuals, that's the most stressful situation out there. All right. And I just say, listen, stress is just stress is just pressure that you didn't decide to deal with. Because if you deal with a pressure situation every single day or every time it comes up, You won't have to, it won't turn into stress. It will not turn into stress. But in order to be put in that pressure situation, your obligation to yourself has to be greater than anybody else's obligation to you. If somebody else tells you got to want it, well, does that mean they want it more than you do? You gotta want that end result. You gotta want that pressure. You gotta your expectations on yourself should be higher than anybody else's expectations on you.
It sounds like this isn't, myth and power of positive thinking, but it's about having the confidence to know that you can handle any situation that comes at you, any sort of permutation whatsoever, because you've practiced it, you've drilled it until you were blue in the face. Versus, I'm trying to sort of distinguish this from a lot of the folks that come through and they're like, oh yeah, relish the challenge that comes your way and like feel that sort of like feel the burn, where it's like, oh, you screwed up all your logistics because you were unprepared. Oh, well, the pressure's going to make you better. And it's like, well, no, that was a lack of preparation, not the right kind of stress, maybe.
Exactly. And I have this thing that I say, every single one of your plans should be a plan A. There shouldn't be plan A's, plan B's, plan C's, because listen, to me, if you have a plan B, that means it's not as good as your plan A. You should have multiple plan A's. They should be equally as effective, equally as good. Now, your first plan A may not work, but your second plan A may, or your third plan A. But if you literally have plan A, plan B, plan C, you're creating a safety net that you don't need. Many times pressure is, you got to throw yourself over the ledge instead of having somebody else throw yourself over the ledge. You got to know that next step is, you got to believe in your abilities to know that's what that next step is there. Winning isn't going to meet you halfway. It's going to meet you at the end. And it's going to watch you go through that unforgiving race to see what's going to come out on that other end. It's like a battlefield that goes on in your mind all the time. You have these constant wars, these constant bombs that are constantly going on in your head. Your anger, your fear, your anxiety, all these different things. And yourself and other individuals are trying to explode those things. They're trying to get you distracted. They're trying to get you out of focus. They're trying to teach you not to deal with pressure. That's that old adage of, you got this. Well, what do you got? What do you have? What is this? What exactly is this? Because your definition of this is completely different than my definition of this. And what you said about the routine, about the preparation, about doing things over and over and over again, allows those individuals to excel and compete and handle those pressure situations and get the results that other individuals just can't get.
It's interesting to look at the example of Michael Jordan in your book. This might have come from the earlier book, Relentless, but it's also come from some of the talks that you've given that I've seen, where the show doesn't start and stop with the game, right? I'm trying to remember this, but like Michael Jordan would always wash his car even if it was raining or something like that, right? And then drive up. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So for most individuals, the preparation starts when they get up in when they get to practice, or they get to shoot around, or get to the game. His preparation started the minute he woke up. Everything he did on that particular day was to prepare himself for the game. The meal, the pregame workout. He had his timepiece. I always say Michael didn't wear watches. He wore timepieces. There's a huge difference. He didn't drive cars. He drove automobiles. So the car was already clean. The suit was laid out. So everything had a routine. So he didn't have to think about those things. So he could stay focused on the game, on the opponent, on the other thing. Those were his necessary steps in order to diffuse the battlefield in the mind. Because if you have all that chaos going on the day of the game, you're thinking about your tickets, you're thinking about what to wear, where your clothes are, where your practices, where everything is. Those bombs are constantly exploding in the head. You have that routine, you have that pattern, you say, this is what I do to succeed. This is what I do to stay focused. This is what I do to win. This is what I do to win over and over and over again. And those routines got really disrupted for a lot of individuals with the pandemic, because the pandemic forced all new routines. There was a bunch of changes, and some people were able to adapt and other individuals weren't able to adapt. A lot of people always wanted to say, man, I wish I could work from home. Well, you got a chance to work from home. All right. People want to say, I want to spend more time, I want to spend more time with my significant other. Well, you got a chance not only to work from home, but maybe spend more time with that person. All right. It isn't always what you think it is, what do you think it's going to be?
Well, are you speaking from personal experience right now?
Well, no, I'm just saying it's not that. Listen, I'm sitting here, I'm talking to you, all right, through, squad chats, and I have my dog in my lap, all right, and I literally have my cat walking through this little desk that I have. The doorbell could be ringing. It's raining outside. When you actually have to go to an office, those things aren't with you. Those aren't distractions. That isn't a new normal. That wasn't a part of your new normal routine. Having your kids homeschooled while you're trying to work. Will you adapt? Do you have the ability to adapt, or are those minefields constantly going on because now your routine has been severely affected? Now, for a lot of individuals, that was a good thing because you were in a routine that wasn't beneficial to your success. It was just one of those things that you just did every day, over and over and over again. It's just like, how's your day going? My day is good. Another day, another dollar. How you doing? I'm surviving. All the old adages that people always say. Every time everybody asks me how my day's going, I always say, it's a great day. It's great. And I could be having the worst day out there, but I can't let anybody else know that's what's going on. If I tell myself it's going to be a great day, it puts me in the correct mindset. And some of my worst days are nothing compared to some other individuals. What the experiences they're going through life and the heartaches that they're going through. So I look at it that if I'm able to open my eyes and put my feet on the ground, everything else is up to me after that.
It's interesting you should bring that up. I read in your book that, are you half Indian or part Indian?
I'm all Indian.
You're all
Both
Indian.
My parents
Okay.
are Indian. Yes.
So that's a country right now where you think about like, man, I'm lucky I don't live there, picking plastic pieces out of the garbage like you see on National Geographic or whatever, where these, like, the poor people have no access to water, let alone school or shoes or anything.
It's unbelievable. That's why I just said it's all perspective. Listen, I don't have everything I want, but I have more than what I need. Mm-hmm. I have more than what I need. And you look at other individuals and you just take things in there. Listen, I'm fortunate enough to do what I set out to do. I went to school for this. I'm one individual that said, hey, this is what my education background is. This is where I invested my time. This is where I invested my money, and I actually get a chance to do that. You get how many individuals that go to school for one thing or get educated in something else and end up doing something completely different. All right. I'm blessed and fortunate that I was able to find a path, my own path to winning, to get me to where I want to be.
Knowing now that you're Indian, I wonder if when you were training Michael Jordan and all these elite athletes to win world championships, if your mom was still like, so are you going to go to medical school now next year? Like,
Jordan, great story, and I'll share this with you. I actually got accepted into medical school. So when I went to college, all right, my parents asked me, well, what are you going to study? What are you going to do? And I told them I wanted to train professional athletes. Mm. And they were like, what are you talking about? Like, train professional athletes, like even back then, having sports athletes did not have individual trainers. They dealt with the training staff that the team had. So this was something that was not even conceivable back
Like,
then.
what kind of doctor does that, Tim? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So, and growing up in an Indian family, especially back then, you have two career choices. Doctors being one, and a doctor is being number two. That was it. All right. And then as time evolved, you got, later on, lawyers were, you were able to you wanted to be a lawyer or an engineer or whatever it would be. So my parents didn't understand, but they said, listen, we still want you to take the entrance exam to medical school. I said, fine. So the first time I took it, I totally bombed.
Oh, man.
Totally bombed. All right. And my dad goes, nice try. He goes, I knew this was going to happen. I've already registered you for the next one. Because he knew I was going to blow it on purpose.
What a vote of confidence. Hey, I already registered you for the other one. I don't even need to know the score.
Yeah. And, well, he knew I blew it on purpose. He was like, all right, because then he's going to be like, all right, well, see, Dad, I'm not smart enough to get into medical school. So he was like, yeah, he goes, I've played this game too. I understand. So then I took it again and I scored fairly well. And I got accepted into, some pretty high-end medical schools. Then having to tell them, I'm not going. I'm not going to go. That you talk about winning is the ultimate gamble on yourself. That was having confidence in myself to know that I'm going to choose a different path and I'm going to get that end result, because that was my ticket to the freedom of the life I wanted to live, not what somebody else wanted to live. All right. You take the chance on yourself and you never doubt what the outcome is going to be. No, when you start, listen, you have a law degree.
Yep.
All right. But you never doubted, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what the outcome is going to be.
This show? Yeah, no, the law,
Yeah.
if anything, the law degree was me going like, I guess I should try something else. Got to buy myself some time here. That was what that was.
Exactly. So you had fear. Listen, I had fear when I was like, okay, I'm going to train professional athletes. You had fear when you said, all right, I'm going to do this exceptional podcast. And I try to tell individuals, it's okay to have fear, but winning doesn't want you to have doubt. You cannot have doubt. You had fear, but you had no doubt that others individuals may have had doubt. You didn't have any doubt that this was going to be successful for you. This was what you want. This is what you wanted to do. This was the gamble on yourself. There's a big difference between the two.
Most people thought I was a total idiot for doing this, especially people who were in law school. Not my parents were pretty supportive, actually, surprisingly so. Probably because they thought, oh, he'll get over this phase and then he'll get a real job. So they were like, I'm not going to even try and fight him on this. He'll eventually. But all my law school classmates, almost without exception, were like, you are so stupid. You should be focusing on your career. This is just going to get you fired from any job you have, because they're going to see you're like moonlighting and wasting your time. Nobody even knows what podcasts are. There's no money in it. This is dumb. Like, it's a hobby. You're just wasting your time. But
see, the interesting part about that statement is you were focusing on your career. It just wasn't the career they wanted you to follow. Yes, that was a point. Like, it wasn't a lack of focus. It was like, I am focusing in on my career. I'm just now focusing in on the career you think I should take.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. There was a lot of like, you're wasting your time doing this. And meanwhile, there's plenty of time to focus on a few different things. Half the people that were like, you're wasting your time, I was like, you're at the bar 5 days a week. What are you talking about? I'm wasting my time. Let me see your bar tab from yesterday. You ate 6 pitchers of sangria, man.
Hilarious.
Would you say that emotions make you, well, this is an overly generalized statement. Would you say that emotions can make you weak in performance-dependent activities, right?
I do. I do. And again, it's funny. I'm glad you got a chance to read the book and review it, because a lot of topics that you're bringing up, we discuss it. We discuss in this book, Winning. One of the chapters, again, is winning isn't heartless, but you use your heart less. All right, which means your mind has to be stronger than your feelings. Your mind is over your feelings. All right. Think about all the unsettling or bad decisions that you've made in your life.
No
Usually
thanks.
they yeah, but a lot of them were through emotions and through feelings.
Yeah.
You knew up here what the right decision was. You knew from a mental standpoint, when your mind, this was the right decision. But from an emotional standpoint or from a feeling standpoint, you were like, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go this way. Your heart was stronger. Your heart in that decision was stronger than your mind. And it didn't turn out very, very well. It just didn't. It just didn't. All right. So feelings make you overthink everything. Feelings make you overthink. Your mind makes decisions. And it may not be popular decisions. All right. If you would have went with your heart and everybody else's heart and everybody else's emotions, you and I would not be talking here right now. You'd be in law school. You'd be practicing law somewhere. And now if I needed to hire you for whatever law practice you were going in, maybe our paths would have crossed. But your mind was stronger than your feelings. You were like, this is what I'm going to do. This is the path I'm going to take. I got to take my heart out of this. I got to know that I am not the problem. When most individuals, when they get their feelings, when they think about an emotional thing, they feel like they're the problem. Like you take the law school thing, where your buddies are saying you need to focus in on law school. You need to not law school. You need to focus in on your career. Mm-hmm. You need to focus in on becoming a successful lawyer. So then now you're sitting here and thinking, well, I'm not going to. Am I really the problem? And you, am I? Yeah, maybe they are right. And you start to get a little emotional. And then when your mind comes in, you make that decision. You're like, no, I'm not the problem. They're the problem. I know exactly what I want to do. And it's the decision from the mind is going to negatively affect a lot of other individuals because that's not the decision they wanted for you.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I think a lot of people a lot of students deal with this because they get pressure from everywhere. And mm-hmm. people who are in any kind of transition. I would imagine some of your corporate clients deal with this as well because they've got boards. Even if they're a CEO, they've got the board saying, well, hey, look, this other company in our niche is doing this. We should just pivot and do that. I mean, you really have like a lot of outside influence that's not necessarily qualified or in a position to make a decision, and it gets you second guessing yourself.
Right. The art of overthinking is creating problems that don't exist. If you constantly overthink, you start creating problems that don't even exist. I mean, my greatest athletes, whether they're in football, baseball, they don't worry about taking a swing they haven't swung yet. They don't worry about taking a shot they haven't taken yet. They don't worry about, well, if I miss, this is what's going to happen. If I make it, this is what's going to happen. Now you get so much emotion involved in that thing. Make a decision. Don't make suggestions. Make a decision and see what the outcome is. Because when you make that decision, you start to perform with energy. And most people perform with emotion. When you make the right decision for yourself, when you use your heart less, you perform with energy, not with emotion. And that's the most successful CEOs, that's what the most successful business people, the most successful money managers, the most successful athletes, the most successful teachers, the most successful anything that you can think of, all right? They perform with energy, not with emotion. Just think about individuals that are waiters or waitresses at restaurants. How many, if they performed every single day with their emotions, it would not be. Yeah, see, I don't even have to go any farther.
Yeah.
You already know.
Right.
You already know. We've all been in that situation. We've always seen with that. They go in and they perform with energy. They do what they have. They deal with different customers' complaints. Not like this. This isn't right. Isn't here. I'm sorry. Your table isn't ready. Da da da. And all this other stuff. If they used their heart in all that thing, it would create more chaos.
Yeah, it's funny. We think about people in those positions and it's like, hey, don't use your emotions. But then you hear with other high performers like, oh, harness your emotions. Is that is that something that should not be done? What about like controlled anger and things like that?
Yeah, so this is what I hate. I hate when this is a big thing with professional organization, high schools, and all this other stuff with teams. Everyone says, play with emotion, play with emotion. Well, what emotion you want me to play with? You want me to play with happiness? You want me to play with sad? You want me to play with anger? You want me to play with fear? You want me to play with anxiety? Because what one emotion a person is going to play with may be different than everybody else. Don't play with emotions, play with energy. Play with energy. Because emotions, they're too fluctuating, they're too up and down. You have to be able to if you're going to play with an emotion, you play with one emotion, not with emotions. You got to take the S out of it. You have some individuals that they got this blank look on their face. They're extremely focused in the way they perform a task, the way they do something. And you have other ones that are constantly fired up, but they stay fired up. And they're fired up with that one emotion. There's no up and down roller coaster. There's those things. That's how you do this thing. And I have this thing, and this is also in the chapter of the Heartless chapter in the book. Control your thoughts. You control your emotions. Control your actions. So control your thoughts, control your emotions, you control your actions.
How often do you think you get so angry that you lose control? I mean, it has happened sometimes. Do you have kids?
I do have kids,
okay.
Yes.
Then they know what buttons to push to make sure that you can't control your emotions.
Listen, we've all been there. No one is perfect. No one is perfect. Everybody gets angry. It's the ability to go from one emotion to another. That's the key. If you can't go from such an high and be able to stay there for such a long level, you got to be able to come back. Are you in that anger state for such a long period of time, or are you have the ability to come back into more of a neutral state, of more of a happiness state? I always say with my athletes, don't go with anger. All right. Go with controlled rage, because anger is just what you said. Somebody else puts you into that anger stage. Usually when you're angry, it's somebody, like you said, your kids, your significant other, your friend, or whatever it may be. Controlled rage is something, it's internal. You get to control how much of that rage you want to let out, how much is necessary, if any of it is necessary, but it's under control. And if you can't control that anger, you can't control that rage, that's going to lead to destructive behavior.
Well, we'll definitely talk about destructive behavior. I'm thinking about my kid. He's 22 months old. So, he can't really make me that angry because he's not like I wrecked your car, Dad. He's like, I took the bottle again and dumped it out again. And I'm looking at you because I know you get super pissed off, and he's just laughing at me. So it's almost like he's like a drill instructor where he's like, I'm going to keep making you like mildly annoyed by dumping out everything you give me and looking for your reaction. So then after a few times, you just go, this is just him testing me. So I lose every time I get upset about this. And I can't show it because he's 22 months old. What kind of father gets pissed off at a toddler? So like it makes you really realize that your emotions are all about your reaction to everything, and nothing will teach you that like a toddler or maybe a pet, right?
Yeah, exactly. You got to be able to control. You got to be able to control your emotions, but you can't control your emotions unless you control those thoughts first. We don't act on every single thought. You see a toddler pouring that thing out, and your first reaction may be to run to it or grab it, and now all of a sudden you're like, no, you know what? That's not the right thought. Because if you think that is the right thought, then you're going to have the wrong emotion, and you're going to have the wrong action behind it. So the control of knowing how to control your emotions and at what stage to control them is extremely important, because most of the time, like I said, other people have more control over your emotions than you do, because that's a way of them to control you by saying something that makes you feel guilty, or something that you're insecure about. And they know if they just continue to peck at that on a regular basis, you'll be getting in an emotional state. And if you get that individual in an emotional state, you have control over that individual. I always say, don't let other individuals push your buttons. You need to be able to pull your buttons, and then you have the ability to push the buttons that you want to get that end result. If you're constantly letting someone else push your buttons, they have control. They know what buttons to push to get what reaction out of you. So do you have the ability to pull your own buttons and to push them and know which ones you need to do to get through that race in order to constantly win, win, and win? Now, when your child, when your son stops doing that, that's a win. That is a win. But if you don't do it the correct way, that win is going to take so much longer.
Do you think that's why Michael Jordan used to go into the other team's locker room and just kind of, I don't know what he was doing in there, saying hi to people. It seemed innocuous, but he was just in there to be like, I'm on your territory. It's like that whole, like, not touching, can't get mad. I'm not touching you.
Right.
You can't get angry. Like that kind of thing.
The reason he did that was to, now everybody was focusing in on him instead of focusing in on the game. So now if the coach was writing plays up there or they were watching film or whatever, now all of a sudden everybody's like, well, they forgot about that. Michael just walked in, and especially the young guys, they wanted to see how Michael was dressed, what he was wearing, the shoes that he had on, who he was coming to talk to, and why is he doing this locker room. And Michael would come in sometimes and just say, hey, who's guarding me tonight? And then the other team would say, it's Calbert or it's whoever. And he'll be like, boy, it's going to be a long night for you. And just walk. And now everybody starts laughing, because now what happens is Michael actually took over the headspace before the game even started. They're so focused in on that moment, they're totally forgetting about what they have to do an hour later.
That's really devious and good, because I can imagine a coach being like, hey, forget about that. And everyone's like, I can't, okay, sure. And they're just like 2 seconds later paying attention to it.
It's like the athlete that always, everybody tells you, don't think, just go out there and perform. Well, what's the first thing that happens when somebody tells you don't think?
Right. You start thinking why not? Why shouldn't I think? Is there something wrong with thinking? Yeah.
Right. You start thinking.
Recovering from a loss, this sort of touches on emotion a little bit. You mentioned in the book Winning that when you're recovering from a loss, you just dissect it until it falls apart. What's going on here? That's a kind of a brilliant tactic, actually.
Well, so this is how I look at a loss. All right. Here's another cliche that I just tell, just absolutely, it irks me, and it teaches people the wrong thing. And that's why a lot of people can't get to where they're at, because these cliches have been going on for years and years and years and years. And I'm trying to give people, this is not how the champions do it. This is not how the winners do it in life. All right. They always say, when you get knocked down, you need to stand right up again. All right, you get knocked down, stand back up. Well, a loss is a knockdown. All right, if you just jump back up, you're gonna fall again, because you didn't realize what put you on that floor. So I would say, when you get knocked down there, stay down for a little bit. Understand what you were doing down there. How'd you get down there? Educate yourself. Learn from that experience. Because when you stand up, you can't stand up the same person. So if you get knocked down once and you figure out why you got knocked down, when you stand up again, you're going to be stronger than you were when you get knocked down. When you get knocked down again, you stay down there a little longer, you figure out, you stand up again, you're going to be smarter. When you get knocked down a third time, and knockdowns are infinite. When you knock down, you stay down there again. It's another loss. You stand up. You're going to be more resilient. So every time you stand up, you have to stand up a different individual than the individual that got knocked down. Otherwise, your losses are just going to be more losses, more losses, more losses. Yeah, it looks good to everybody else when you get knocked down and you stand back up again, but you're standing up the same person. You didn't learn why you got knocked down. And sometimes you only need to be down there for a minute. Other times you have to be down there maybe for weeks, maybe even for a month, until you figure out what's going on, of why you keep ending up with this loss and you're not in this race to win.
It's kind of like dating, where people keep getting attracted to the wrong kind of partner. And then it's like, hey, maybe stop dating and go to a therapist and find out why you keep getting together with people who steal your money or whatever. It's kind of that similar scenario. Like, you have to reflect on it. Otherwise, you're just getting beat up for no reason.
Exactly.
How can we tell if somebody, you mentioned that great champions, they bring the team up, they make the team better, but they're hard to work with. And I think you'd said that Michael Jordan in The Last Dance, other players say, oh, he's an asshole, he's hard to work with, because he didn't let emotions get in the way. How can we tell if somebody on our team or in our organization is a champion driving everyone to be better and is difficult to work with for that reason, versus somebody who's actually just a toxic asshole that needs to be removed from the team or the organization? Because there's plenty of people who are terrible to work with, right, under the guise of making everyone better, but they're just shitty people.
Yeah. Listen, are they getting the end result? Everyone has a different way of elevating the team around, or team around them. All right. And not every method works for all those individuals. But is that person, the one thing Michael said, I will never ask you to do something that I won't do myself. I come to practice, I practice extremely hard. I do what I'm supposed to do. I'm coachable. Yeah, I may be vocal, I may be hard on you, but winning is not easy. It's not easy. And if you haven't won anything, let me show you how to win. Are people just talking, or are they actually winning? Are they getting those results over and over again? That's how you tell if a person is toxic or not. Are they just jabbering? All right. And it's easy to uplift yourself. It's easy to elevate yourself. All right. That's the easy part. Do you have the ability to elevate the individuals around you? That is the most difficult thing to do. So what works for one individual is not necessarily going to work for the other individual. You may have an individual on that Bulls team. Michael was the in-the-face guy. He was in your face, told you like it is. All right. And then there was Scotty was more of the uplifting person. He talked a little bit softly and so forth. So Michael knew who he could talk to. And there were many times he was like, Scotty, you go talk to him. Because Michael knew if he talked to him the way he did, it was actually going to get more of a negative result than a positive result. And that's leadership, also knowing when to delegate authority to somebody else, so everyone can get that ultimate result. That individual that you talk about who's just so toxic, they're selfish in a bad way. They're selfish where it's only about them. It's not about anybody else. It's about them. When these great leaders in business, when these great leaders in sports, these great winners, everybody benefits. Yeah, are they all going to benefit at the same level? Listen, obviously, the CEO he or she or they are going to they're going to benefit more. All right. But even the individual that has stock options in the company, or who might be making the minimum wage, they benefit from a winning culture. They benefit from a winning organization. And if they stay with that organization long enough, they will be able to know the steps that are necessary to get to a higher level. Let's talk about the dark side. This is probably my favorite part of any of the stuff that you write about. I assume a lot of people ask about this because, well, first of all, what is the dark side, right? This is like, we see the results of this on television usually when we watch documentaries about like Tiger Woods or whatever. I mean, and I'll ask you about him in a bit, but what is the dark side, first of all? Well, I'll tell you what the dark side is not. Okay. The dark side is not about vampires and Star Wars and so forth. That's what everybody thinks. The dark side, everyone has one. It's what keeps you going when nothing else will. It's that internal fuel. It's that chip that's not on your shoulder. It's a chip that's inside of you that nobody else can touch. Only you can touch. So when everything is going wrong, where you have no energy, where you're literally living in an apartment and you have no food in that house, your dark side tells you, keep going. It's that internal voice that's in your head that tells you, we're going to get there. Keep working. Block everything out, block everything else out. And it's unique to each individual in here. I give a great example. You know, you have a lot of individuals that are raised by only one parent for whatever reason, or maybe no parents at all. You may have an individual that uses that as an excuse the rest of their life. You know, I didn't have a good family structure. My father wasn't there. My mother wasn't there, or whatever it is. And then you have that other individual that says, watch me. That's their dark side, saying, watch what I'm going to do with this situation here. It what keeps you going when nothing else will. It's that internal fire. It's that desire that nobody can take away from you. It's dealing with those skeletons in your closet. It's dealing with knowing all. I have this thing that winning knows all your secrets. The dark side knows all your secrets. Now, if you don't want to share them, that's up to you. That's up to you. But you have to accept that part of you. You have to accept, hey, this is what's going on. I tell this story when I was a child. I was one of those individuals that always said, you know, I at the middle of the night, I would call my mom and dad, said, you know, Dad, Mom, there's a monster under the bed. There's a monster under the bed. There's a monster under the bed. And this went on for a while. And you know when it stopped?
I don't know. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Do I still do that? No.
Yeah. It stopped when I realized I was the monster. It was a thing that I wasn't willing to deal with. And when it was a part of me, and when I finally accepted it, that's who that monster is a part of me. There's a monster in all of us. We just have to know whether it's a good monster, is a bad monster. Can we control it? Can we not control it? When I realized I was that monster, and this was what allowed me to be me, that monster underneath the bed went away. Now it became my job to learn, can I control this monster that's inside, or the name that they give it, the monster inside of me. And that's that fuel, that's that energy, that's that exhilaration that pushes you and that drives you. It has the ability to say no when everybody else is telling you to say yes. It's your dark side came in when everybody was saying, you went to law school. Whether you paid the tuition, your parents paid the tuition, you were on a scholarship, whatever. Your dark side was like, I'm not going in this direction. When everybody else is telling you to go in this direction.
Do you want athletes to access their dark side? Is that where you want them to go, or is it better to be in a more positive type of place?
No, I want them to only access their dark side as long as they can control their dark side. If they can't control their dark side, don't let it. You've seen this destructive behavior in all forms of life with individuals that, one, they don't know what their dark side is. They get it confused with something else. And when they do let it go, they have no control over it, and it leads to destructive behavior. Know what your dark side is, understand it, know that you can control it. Know that you can control it. Know that it's going to attack your fears. Know it's going to attack your insecurities. All right. It's going to be with you. It's a part of you. You have to accept it. I need my athletes to show up as a whole. I don't need them to show up only part of them. Bring everything with you and use what you need when you need it.
You mentioned in the book there's CEOs that say, "Oh, I don't have that," and then it's like 8 months later, the board's calling you because the guy's running the company into the ground because he doesn't know that it's like the devil on the shoulder, right? If you don't really think if you don't see the devil on the shoulder talking to you, you think that you're making these decisions, but really it's controlling you.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. Perfect example.
Powerful high performers that often get embroiled in scandal, is that a lot of people say, "Oh, it's unchecked power." Do you think it's power that they get because they're used to accessing their dark side? You know, like the DUIs or the people who end up getting caught with like they got 3 women on the side or something like that. You know, what do you think's going on there?
It's something they can't control. It's something they think they can, well, they don't even think, they know, they have this knowing feeling that I can get away. I can keep getting away with these things. And now all of a sudden you're not in control anymore. It's in control. And not sometimes, it always leads to destructive behavior. It always usually leads to an exit of some point. So, it says, I said, you got to be able to harness it and you got to be able to control it. You got to know when to use it and when not to use it. You got to know when to show it and when not to show it. But it's a part of you. It is a part of you. It's like everybody that's won something exceptional. And there's pictures of Kobe doing this. There's pictures of Michael. There's pictures of, CEOs in business, CFOs, all these other things. They crave the solitude in the dark. And what I mean by the dark, in a room, it doesn't have to be a dark room, but it could be a place where they're just there by themselves. There's pictures all over Instagram of Kobe holding the trophy, just going somewhere by himself, holding the trophy. There's images of Jeff Bezos. There's images of all these individuals, that are in their office by themselves after a huge win. They need that solitude. They need that darkness to understand. That's where they kind of unwind. That's kind of where they get to understand who they really are. And you can't run from it, because wherever you run, it's with you. It's going to be with you. But you can't be great in what you do without it. You can't be exceptional. You can be good. But when you're good, you're not really judged. When you're great and when you're unstoppable and when you can't consistently win, you're going to be judged. And people that are willing to show their dark side and know how to use it, they're not afraid to be judged.
Do you think that's why a lot of players, like Kobe had the Black Mamba alter ego, do you think that's why a lot of players contain that dark side in an alter ego instead of just letting it spill out everywhere?
Yes. And, again, I'm glad you read the book because that's in the book. It says winning knows all your secrets. And that's all about the Black Mamba, about the way he couldn't live his life that way in his personal life, but on the basketball court, in a business life, it was like, this is who I want. This is who I am. This is who I need to be. All right. And I have to say now, and I have athletes all the time that talk about, the Mamba mentality. And I tell them, the Mamba mentality, it's not a mindset. It's a lifestyle. And I've seen it destroy more careers than I've actually seen it help, because that lifestyle that you have to live in order to get that wins over and over and over again, it's not for everyone. It is in a dark place. It is in a dark place. And, obviously, listen, he didn't pick a garden snake. He didn't say a garden snake mentality. He picked the most venomous snake out there to be his alter ego.
Yeah, it's not the dandelion mentality or whatever. I don't even know what other snakes there are. I've got like 2. My snake vocabulary is very limited. How do we know if we're indulging our dark side for a result, right? To get something done, or we're just simply not respecting other people, not respecting our family? Because I want to be careful not to give a pass to bad behavior because someone says, well, I'm a high performer, so I got, it's my dark side, sorry.
No, that's an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
That's an excuse. You can be... you could be an extremely high performer, and high performance, performing at the highest level, is your dark side. That is your dark. You're not the individual that you said earlier that doesn't go to the bar 5 days a week, that doesn't have a bar tab. That could be the person that works too much. That's their dark side. All right. It could be the person that doesn't celebrate their wins. They just want more wins. They want more wins. They want more wins. All right. The individual that just uses that, oh, that's my dark, I'm a high performer, and that's my dark side. No, they're not using their dark side. That's just an excuse, because they're just being, whatever you want to call them. They're just not.
People.
Yeah, there's a difference between people that use that as an excuse and people that know how to use it for their advantage. The dark side's it's a very powerful thing. And we go into it really, really in detail. We went into real detail in Relentless, and then we went into even more detail into Winning. And if you read that chapter, if you get that book, and that's the only chapter you read, you get a clear understanding of what it is and how each individual has it and how each individual can use it and control it and have a better understanding of it.
I thought it was a helpful chapter. I still think the concept is helpful, because there's a lot of people, like right now, there's almost a cult of like, oh, work-life balance, and you got to be this way and you got to be that way. And it's almost like, but it's the same social media sort of influencers telling you, just get up and be motivated to do what you want to do. You're kind of just, maybe this isn't what they mean, but it's kind of like saying, stuff all that stuff that you feel into the back and be this different way. But that doesn't really work, because you kind of need that raw dark side to come out, because that's the side that says like, there is no balance in what I'm doing right now. I'm focused on this and only this, and the other things are going to suffer, and I will have to fix that later. But the people around me that are close to me have to realize that this is what's happening right now. Like, this is I got my evil mask on right now,
Jordan, that's I couldn't have said it better. Listen, Winning wants all of you. There is no balance. And another chapter in the book, there is no balance. And there's so many books that are written out there about balance, balance, balance. Listen, you don't find balance. You don't find it. Everybody's trying to find balance. You don't find balance. You create it. And the way you create balance is different than the way some other individual creates balance. All right. And what everybody tries to do when they tell you you have no balance in your life, what do they try to do? They try to add more stuff. So now you're trying to balance even more things. You know how you get closer to balance? You get rid of the unessentials. And there's so much inside of us. There's so much in our minds. There's so much in our thoughts. There's so much in our emotions. There's so much in our actions that we need to delete, that we need to get rid of. And if you get rid of those things, you actually get closer to balance. Are you going to be perfectly balanced? You're not going to be perfectly balanced. All right. And don't judge somebody, and don't try to find somebody else's balance and then try to use it as yours. It's funny how the most people that talk about balance are the ones that are extremely successful now, but they don't talk about the times where they were so unbalanced before to get to this level.
Yeah, that's funny you should mention that. There's a guy who's been on the show before that I really love, Scott Galloway, and he says work-life balance, that doesn't if you want to be economically successful, because that's the angle he's coming from, he says there's no balance until you're like 40. Before that, you live at the office all the time because you're working on your startup or you're working on your company and you're getting ahead and you're working 6-7 days a week, and you suffer through that so that when you're 40, 45, then you can have balance because you've earned it. You're welcome to have balance before that, but you're probably not going to end up in, I think he says, like the top 10% of earners. It's just facts, really.
Totally agree with him. 100%. Totally agree. It's like you said, the Instagram gurus and the motivational individuals, they love to talk about the feel-good things. And, everyone sees winning as this euphoric thing, and it is. But this book is the language of winning, of what it takes for each, and I don't care how small your win is, how big your win is, this is what you have to go through. This is what the race of winning requires. I don't care what level you're at. this is what it's going to take. And people just don't like to talk about it. And I'm that one individual that not only wants to talk about it, I want it to be heard because it's essential. It's essential to your success as an individual, as a business person, as an entrepreneur, whatever it may be. As a parent, it's essential.
Tim Grover, thank you so much. Great insight here on what it takes to win, as opposed to just waxing philosophical about it on Instagram. So really good insight.
Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate it. Thank you again. Listen, winning, the unforgiving race to greatness, it's in all of us. It's in all of us. All right. Jordan, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll link to the book in the show notes as we always do. I really appreciate your time.
Great interview.